Hello again, and welcome to a fresh episode of Perspectives. This time out, we have access to the guy who created this amazing image. Now, I was blown away because I read about how he did it, and you're going to find out from the artist himself. His name is Freddy Clark. Freddy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Larry. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And that image is just amazing to me because it has such depth to it. And I can't believe you didn't actually do this on location in like a restaurant, tavern kind of place. It's beautiful food photography, and it's just so believable as an on-set kind of thing in a restaurant, but you didn't have to do that. So unpack this a little bit for us. Tell us what you did.
Okay, sure. So as a food and beverage photographer, like I usually live in 2x3, 4x6 spaces, right? Small spaces. And backgrounds, locations are a challenge. You know, creating backgrounds in my studio or going to locations can be challenging, right? Dragging all the gear out and everything. So one night I was watching on Disney Plus the history of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. And if you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it highly enough, because it was just fantastic having grown up with all those movies, you know, through the 80s and 90s, the Star Wars films, Jurassic Park, all those things where they created whole new realities. And now they're talking about stuff today where back in the old days it was stop motion, and now they're doing things with giant video screens, right? They're doing things where you have actors and some set pieces in front of giant large screen videos that are projecting on the background the scene. And it dawned on me like, well, why can't I do that? I mean, I don't need the giant screen. I'm on a smaller scale. So a 50-inch television behind my setup will get me that same place. So I started experimenting with that. You know, went out and bought another 50-inch screen TV because my wife really didn't want me to take the one out of the living room for the studio, and just started playing around with creating either photographs or graphics and just projecting them on the screen and creating a practical setup in front of it, but having that video screen as my background. So I could put the food, the beverage, whatever I was shooting, any place I wanted. So that was the thinking behind it. And then just some fine tuning and some tweaking and trying to figure out where to source some of those images became, you know, that became the next step. So doing things like going for either shots I've taken places, which can be good for, you know, if you see a location you really like, you grab a picture of it, you can bring it back to the studio, or even things like Midjourney, like the one we're looking at today, Larry.
Yeah,
I created that in Midjourney.
nice.
So everything behind the hamburger was a prompt. The beer, rather, you know, everything behind those practical items was, you know, create 50 style diner, counter, people in it. I don't remember all the prompts, but it became another tool so that even if I can't find what's in my head, I can go ahead and create it another way.
Well, I find it incredible that you got the bokeh just right, or bouquet, however anybody says it. You nailed it.
So yeah, so it was a lot of moving around, playing around. I mean, having some experience as a food and beverage photographer, I've shot in restaurants where I know I'll get a feel for, you know, what that bokeh would look like for the rest of the restaurant, right? So I shot at f8 this particular image, and it was really just a matter of f8 at that distance gave me the burger and French fries, tack sharp, the little sauce cup, tack sharp, but then the beer and the containers, the jars behind that were just a little further back. And then I used a 70 millimeter lens for this shot, an 80 millimeter, and I was at 80 millimeter. And just knowing how close I was with a macro at f8 with that 80 millimeter, the compression, the bokeh, and then I move the television back and forth to give me the amount of bokeh that I want. So there is just some experience in knowing kind of what it would look like. And then if I move the TV a little further back or a little closer, I'll get the amount of bokeh. I can decrease or increase the amount of bokeh.
Oh, see, now I was thinking in post you were, or rather in setup, you were actually blurring the monitor. But no, you actually blurred the monitor by using camera optics and moving the monitor further away. Wow.
Correct. On the monitor, that scene is tack sharp. When it's on the monitor, it's tack sharp. You can see every aspect of it, and it was just kind of pitching it back. And the nice thing is, because I'm at such a narrow focal range, right? And it's compressing everything and bringing everything together for me. So there's a lot more on the left and right of that photo that I used. There's a lot more TV real estate, if you will, on either side, but I didn't need it to really tell the story. So between my focal length and how much I move back and forth, I can bring it right where I want everybody to see it and still get the bokeh effect I wanted.
It's incredible. And you and I met up just very recently at Imaging USA, and you showed me a new image that you did. And again, it was the photographer side of me that was going, how did you do the bokeh in the right step, in the right progression? Are you doing this with a lot of different projects and photos?
Recently, I have been, because it gives you all of whatever you can imagine, you can come up with. I did one where there was a wine bottle, and the wine brand was called Freak Show. So I built a carnival scene in Midjourney. I did a shot of a whiskey at a bar. And the one you're referring to is a whiskey in a Glencairn glass, kind of like a home living room setup. So I wanted to create something homey, something inviting, someplace where I called it, the premise was the end of the day. So it was kind of like, you've done your work day, you're chilling out with a book and a whiskey, and you're sitting in front of the fireplace in your living room. So that was just creating that scene, the TV again, and just kind of working it back and forth. So, this is what I'm doing is nothing that takes any great, the TV screen, a 50-inch TV screen, and nowadays they're like $200 or $300, right? So they're not that expensive. The Platypod gear on the hamburger shot did all of my lighting, right? I have a Platypod and a handle with some of the little small panel lights, and that's all my lighting for the burger and a little bit from behind. So, all this is stuff that you can do with not a lot of investment and home studio, or do it in your living room. Just move your table back and forth from your TV.
It sounds like you're able to do this and then capture everything in camera and not spend a lot of time on post-production, special effects, editing, those kinds of things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know what? Part of the thinking behind this was also, I used to do composite work, and there's some brilliant people who can do amazing things with composites with Photoshop. But everything technically becomes real, right? So any reflections, I work with glass a lot. So any translucency, I see through the glass what's behind the glass, like you would in real life. So unlike compositing, I go into Photoshop, I go into Lightroom, I may be doing a little bit of tweaking, some contrast, I'll maybe take out some spots here and there, but I'm not doing a ton of work post. It's 90%, 95% in camera.
Well, I've learned a lot from you. Do you have any additional resources where people can go and see more of your work, find out more about you, any kinds of projects you do, like workshops or anything?
Sure. My main website is freddyclark.photography. You can find my portfolio there and all my food and beverage work. I'm on Instagram at Freddy Clark Photo. And I do a lot of teaching for Princeton Photo Workshop in New Jersey. But we do a lot of virtual stuff as well. So you can find me any of those places. And and feel free to reach out. And I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Freddy, thank you so much for being on Perspectives this week. I've learned a whole lot and learned about how to get that look. I think I'm going to go buy a new screen today. Thanks so much to our friend Freddy Clark for helping us understand how he captured that incredible image, and also that he was inspired by that Disney documentary. You definitely have to check that out on Disney Plus. Freddy Clark, that was incredible. I learned so much with these Perspective episodes. Tune in again next time, because you never know what you're going to learn on Platypod Perspectives.